Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. WW2 Zombies did nothing wrong, lads. It was a perfect game, or at least it might as well be when you compare it to a film that came out a couple of weeks ago, produced by none other than goddamn J.J. Abrams, okay? The film that I'm talking about is called Overlord, and I ended up seeing it on its opening weekend when I was staying in Alabama with JC, Chopper, Noah, Lex, Joe, and Liam. We all saw the film together, and we all walked out of it and went, wow, okay, this actually gives me a much greater appreciation for the Final Reich, for that first WW2 Zombies map. And today I basically want to talk about why, because it was honestly just a joke. Like, it's actually ridiculous. And it's topical as well because Cameron Dayton, the creative lead for WW2 Zombies, has left Sledgehammer now. And so has Glenn Schofield, even though Glenn actually already left Sledgehammer, he's left Activision too. So people from that project are dropping like flies at this point. Cameron has gone to Anthem. I think that's a really awesome move for him. Anthem's a game that I'm really interested in, so I'm really excited that he's gone over there, and I'm looking forward to seeing some more stuff that he's worked on next year when that game comes out, and I'll probably be making some Anthem videos in the build-up as well, because I am really excited for it. But he's gone now, and so people have been talking about that, and I figured that it might be nice to sort of look back a little bit at that game, especially in the context of this new film that just makes it look so much better. So, I'm going to be talking about spoilers here. If you don't want the film spoiled, then now's the time to click off. If you don't care, which you probably shouldn't care because it's a terrible film, or at least it's just not very good, then let's do this. Let's get into it, okay? The best part of the film, in my opinion, is the opening 2 minutes. In the opening 2 minutes, there's a really cool plane sequence, and it just feels really epic. It feels like a war film that I'd want to watch the rest of 100%, maybe watch it a few times. It was really cool. And then they parachute out, the plane gets destroyed, and at this point, the film kind of transitions into a more sort of cliched World War II film where there's a band of brothers, there's a group of soldiers, and they're in enemy territory and they're trying to survive as a little unit. And so then there's a landmine scene, which is the most cliched landmine scene in the world. Nothing unique about it, doesn't really contribute to the plot in any meaningful way, might as well not have been there as far as I'm concerned. And then a little later, there's a scene where they find this like mauled animal in the woods. And I guess that's the first introduction you have in the film to the fact that it's gonna have zombies in it, because it is a zombie film. But that sort of body itself doesn't go anywhere either. Like, it might as well not have been there. It doesn't contribute to the plot in any meaningful way whatsoever. So then the characters stumble into this little village, and straight away, in your head, if you've played World War II Zombies, if you've played Final Reich especially, you're going to be thinking Mittelberg. Literally straight away. Then alongside that, you realize that the character that the American soldiers have just met is literally Marie Fisher. She is straight out of World War II Zombies. She's a French resistance fighter, and she's staying in that town. She ends up taking them to her home, and then we're introduced to the kind of bad guys and what's going on in this village. And it's literally the same thing as World War II Zombies. In fact, Dr. Straub pretty much walks out onto this bridge going into this radio tower area at one point, and it looks exactly like him, to a T. The glasses, the hair, the lab coat, it's just Dr. Straub. It's the guy. And so, at that point, like, okay, well, obviously there are going to be some cliches. There are going to be some stereotypes that they've both been drawing from, and so there are going to be some overlaps, right? But then it just keeps going further. You end up seeing the inside of the facility at one point, which turns out to be this crazy Nazi research facility, just like in Final Reich. They go underground, just like in Final Reich. The entire architecture looks just like Final Reich. The zombie experiments themselves look just like Final Reich. There's one where it's like a head and just a spine or something. That literally might have been just out of Final Reich. Like 100%. That's the exact sort of thing that you'd expect to see in that map. And it's just like the list goes on and on and on of elements in the film that I felt like were done significantly better in the Final Reich. And then the character gets out, but then the girl who's been protecting the American soldiers, that woman, her brother ends up getting captured by the Nazi forces. What does that sound like? That sounds like Klaus. We've got a Marie and Klaus dynamic going on now. And so they go back in to rescue Klaus. To rescue literally Marie's brother. Like, the overlap just keeps on going. You then, amongst all of that, have some awful dialogue and just elements of the film that just don't make sense straight up. Like, there's this serum that turns people who are dead into basically zombies, but they're kind of alive first. So they become alive like a normal person, but then they kind of mutate a little bit and they go crazy, they get really strong, right? Very classic kind of zombie style thing. And so the main character, Boyce, he has a vial of this serum, and he's seen what it does, so he knows exactly how powerful it is. He brings it back to his teammates who are outside this facility, and they're talking about it, and then his kind of team leader or whatever just tosses it aside, and Boyce is like, yeah, I don't care. He doesn't say what it does, he doesn't say anything about it, and then 5 minutes later, suddenly he's like, oh yeah, this serum that we just left on the floor, maybe that would be useful now. He jams it in his buddy and his buddy's revived. There's just little things like that where you could so easily have written this better, but instead, you end up with this really mangled plot that just feels so strange, man. So then it's very cliched, they go back into the facility, you end up with the sort of big bad guy injecting himself with the serum, making himself super strong. He ends up being the main villain, and a couple other zombies get woken up while they're in there, but annoyingly, it's literally like 3 zombies that you see for the entire film. And I'm not even exaggerating. I think actually total, we counted, and there were 7 zombies in the entire film. 7. I was expecting this to be like a film where they'd start in a place like this, and then they'd end up going somewhere else, and there'd be like an entire horde across the entire country pretty much coming for them, and they'd have to do something about that. Like, I thought they were really doubling down in that direction, but instead, they just went nowhere with it. And all of those elements that I mentioned of the architecture and the inspiration and the Fuel Society and things along those lines, the Anna Nerba from World War II Zombies, all those things that they kind of used as building blocks for this film just fell flat. They somehow managed to take away all of the natural massive intrigue that comes from that entire subject. The Nazi kind of occult experimentation, the satanic involvement, all of it, okay? All that stuff that literally was the kernel of Treyarch zombies back in the day with Verrückt and Deriz and Shinonuma. They managed to make that uninteresting. Somehow, it blows my mind, man. And then you get to the end of the film, and they did the exact same thing as they did in World War II Zombies, which is they basically bomb the facility or they blow it up, and then they're like, oh yeah, there was nothing there at all, and it's their way of kind of covering up the fact that the Nazis did this. But the way they do it at the very end is just so corny, man. Like, this guy's commander basically says, hey, okay, yeah, we heard some reports that there was some crazy Nazi experimentation going on in this bunker. Is that the truth? And Boyce is like, nah, fam, nah. And the message is obviously that the Americans are no better than the Germans, I guess, and that they wouldn't use that responsibly either. But he's literally just like, nah. And then his commander's like, okay, I believe you. And then Boyce is like, okay, see ya, and that's the end of the film. It's so weird. But at least the positive to all of this is that it really made me appreciate World War II Zombies in a way that I've never done before. Throughout World War II Zombies, and throughout the marketing campaign even for it, felt like we were getting a sort of budget version of Zombies. It felt like a bit of a knockoff. It felt like there were decisions that they were making that I just didn't really like, and I had similar emotions during Infinite Warfare Zombies. Infinite Warfare made some changes I thought were really cool. World War II Zombies did the same thing as well. They did some changes that I thought were actually awesome changes for the franchise, and that I think have actually contributed really positively to where Zombies is today. But at the time, I just felt like I wasn't really getting hooked into the story in any meaningful way, and I found it really difficult to kind of maintain my interest over the course of the DLC season. But with this film now out there, massive Hollywood film, budget $38 million, with that just sort of sitting there in the spotlight for a bit, it's really made me go, damn, World War II Zombies, for all the odds that were up against it, actually did a decent job. Yes, all the old criticisms that I had of it pretty much are still there, but I at least now have more respect, I would say, for the story they were trying to craft, the execution of the aesthetic and the vision, and trying to cultivate some interest in the underlying mythos and what they were doing with the Raven Lords and all of that. I appreciate so much more now the work that did go into all of that sort of research and cultivating that part of the story and that part of the narrative, which just wasn't present in this film. And I really just came out of Overlord and went, you know what? That kind of made me want to play the Final Reich, because I want to replace the memory of the last 2 hours of what I've just seen with the old thing that I had in my head that I feel like was actually significantly better. And that's coming from someone that didn't really like Final Reich. I've played it quite a lot. I streamed it quite a lot on Twitch. But I just was surprised that this film actually put me in this kind of frame of mind. I mean, World War II Zombies was amazing when you compare it to this film as far as I'm concerned. So if you've seen Overlord, let me know what you think. I guarantee there are going to be people in the comments of this going, yeah, MrRoflWaffles, you're negative about everything. Like, you just don't like anything, MrRoflWaffles, and like, all you do is complain about things. Could you imagine if instead of going down that route, you just appreciate for 1 second the fact that what I really want to get at here is not that Overlord has made me depressed, it's that it's actually given me a little bit of hope for whatever the next World War II Zombies thing might be. I don't think they're going to continue that story. I don't know if they're even going to make a Zombies mode, to be honest. But it's made me appreciate that team's design ability a little bit more. And in a season and an era and a year when Black Ops 4 Zombies is not really so hot, it's nice to have a little bit of a boost to one of the other franchises, just a little one, so that we can look towards the future with a slightly more positive outlook. That's just a positive little bump as far as I'm concerned. So I'm treating this as a thumbs up to Overlord for making me appreciate World War II Zombies more, making me appreciate Cameron Dayton's work more. It's making me look forward more to Anthem now as well, because he's gone over there, and I'm like, you know what? I think you actually did a decent job here. And I mean, I'd like to see where that goes with Anthem, because in Anthem, they're talking about all this cool sounding lore stuff about the world being left unfinished by the gods and all sorts of crazy stuff that I'd love to jump into. And I mean, this is just pushing me a little bit more in that direction. So let me know if you agree or disagree with me here, guys. Personally, I didn't really like the film, but I'm sure a lot of you did. It was an enjoyable watch. It wasn't like I was completely hating my time watching it, but the jump scares felt very cheap, and I mean, there was just so much that I felt could have been done better in that film that World War II Zombies did actually execute on. So, I've been MrRoflWaffles. World War II Zombies did nothing wrong, and I'll see you guys very soon in more Zombies videos. Cheers, bye for now.